And we're officially live. Welcome back to another episode on the Coffee with Craner show. Thanks everyone for tuning in today and watching this special episode with Shane Kennedy. He graduated from St. Francis Xavier University, completing a Bachelor of Business Administration, specializing in management. He's the former Vice President of Southwestern Ontario at TD Canada Trust, has 23 years of experience in the financial services industry, proud father of two great girls, the founder of Scarecrow for Kids, and has recently moved back all the way to Nova Scotia, where he has joined the Cooperators as a financial advisor. Shane, thanks for making the time and reconnecting with the folks down in Windsor, Essex.
Lyndon, it is absolutely wonderful to be here. We're having a bit of a northeaster here in Nova Scotia, so I'm hoping it was always warm and beautiful in Windsor. So I hope it's a little warmer there today, and certainly miss all the people. So great to be here.
Glad to have you back, Shane. And before we get started, we jump into the questions here and talking about your previous role and your experience. I want to take it to the side a bit and ask, what is your favorite coffee out in Nova Scotia?
Well, you know what? There is so many amazing coffee shops, as well as a few drinking establishments here on the East Coast. But if I was to pick one, it would be a great little adventure. Take the ferry from Halifax to Dartmouth and stop at a really, really wonderful coffee shop called If 2 by C. And not only do they have great coffee, but they have the absolute best pastries that you will get on the East Coast. So when you come visit, I will take you over to If 2 by C.
Well, it sounds delicious, and we're all eager to get out and especially travel in Canada and the great country that we are lucky to be in. And once the COVID pandemic's over, we'll definitely be grabbing coffee. But Shane, let's talk about your role in finance and banking. 23 years. I mean, that's incredible. And you're still in the financial industry. You've switched paths now to financial advisor role at the Cooperators. Well, what really sparked your interest in banking and now finance?
You know what, Linda, it's a great question. And I tell people that I was an accidental banker. I have always been a people person, and growing up in a small village, I always, really valued relationships and getting to know people. But I actually fell in love with, the advice and the helping people business. And really, when I think about financial services, that really is the business that I came from and that I transitioned to with the Cooperators. And it's been a great journey. And I would say any of your viewers that have an opportunity to get into financial services, it teaches you how to run a business. It teaches you how to be a leader. It teaches you how to build business and really focus on the most important resource that we have, which is our customers and our colleagues. So it's been a great run.
Definitely, and I was under your leadership a wee little bit ago in 2018. So I think it's great. What was your first role in banking?
My first role in banking actually was, I remember I came out of university and I was ready to be the CEO of anything. And, it was a bit humbling at the time when I started off as a part-time teller, and there wasn't a lot of male tellers back in the day, where I was offered a 10-hour-a-week part-time role. And I said, I will take it. And from there, I worked hard, did some studies to kind of round out some of the educational piece at the bank, and the rest is history. So I could never, they never let me in the cash cage because I was terrible at balancing, and I always had difficulty opening the vault. But besides that, things have worked out for the better.
And you mentioned wanting to be a CEO right when you graduated. What did you realize from that statement you just made? Was it as easy as you expected to get to the role as VP?
You know what? When it doesn't. You say 23 years, and you make me feel a little bit old because it feels like it was just yesterday, Lyndon. And I would say, starting off in my career, I was very focused on title. I was very focused on I want to make a lot of money quickly. And not that you can't have those things, but the advice that I would give to others would be focus on skills, building skills, focus on critical experiences, and really be a sponge. And the latter, that being money and title, will follow. So it really it was definitely humbling, but coming up the ranks within the bank, I wouldn't have done it any other way, because you really have the opportunity to walk the talk and talk the walk, and it was a great experience. Although I still can't balance cash or open the vault, so they don't give me the keys.
Yes, and Shane, talking about your getting into that role, switching to my next question for you, I've read your blog, The Friday Forward, and you talked about why you moved to Nova Scotia. But for those watching, why did you make that switch, working on out in Bay Street, now living out on the East Coast?
Yes, well, we're originally from Nova Scotia, and when I think back, I had to count it on my fingers, but we have actually moved 8 times over a 20-year span. And I would say, when I think about career, and I think about life, it's very much about, for me anyways, it's about taking risks, and it's actually about setting goals. I'm reminded of a really, really great quote. Being from the East Coast, it has to be about ships, but the quote speaks to risk, but it goes, a ship is safe in a harbor, but that's not what ships were built for. And again, it speaks to taking risks. This move back to the East Coast was certainly a risk for us, but the catalyst was really around bringing balance, and I would say geographical balance, because throughout my career, I've always worked hard to bring balance and to have balance. And we talk a lot about work-life balance, but this was about bringing geographical balance, and that all of our family was on the East Coast. When you become a father, and I have 2 young girls, as you had mentioned, both under the age of 5, this was about getting back to Nova Scotia, close to family and friends. And I would say, for any of your fellow colleagues or students, if you have an opportunity to move, I would say absolutely do it. We have met the most amazing people. I would add you to that list. We've had the most wonderful experiences, and we've learned and lived in wonderful parts of this country. And the mobility and the taking risk just helps you move outside your comfort zone. So if you have the opportunity to push yourself and move outside your comfort zone, I'm a big advocate for sign up and do it.
And has it brought you more happiness being at home with your family?
You know what? I would say, early days in COVID, I was, we had sold our home in London, and I was had no home, living in my in-laws' basement. The pandemic hit. I was looking after 2 toddlers under the age of 4. We were down to 1 vehicle, and at the time, I didn't have a job. And I kind of sat back and I said, "Oh my gosh, there has to be more to life." And it wasn't until I changed my thinking, Lyndon, and then I said, "You know what? I don't want to waste this time. This is time I won't get back with family and friends." And I also took a step back to say, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I know you and I chuckled at the start. We're all still trying to figure that out. And I would say, had the pandemic not happened, I would likely be back in a corporate role, which is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity and wonderful career. But I would just say, the path has certainly changed, and it gave me an opportunity to kind of reflect on, what I want to do for the next chapter. And so I'd say it has brought us tremendous happiness. Put on top of that, we're with our family and friends, and our little girls are spending quality time with both sets of grandparents, and so we are having a ball.
Well, I'm glad, Shane. I'm glad you were able to, like you mentioned, have that time to reflect and think on what are the next steps. Where do you want your life to go in the future? So I do want to bring it back and talk about your role leading Southwestern Ontario. How many branches are there in Southwestern Ontario that you led?
There was 69 branches. We had not quite 1,300 hearts and minds, much like yourself, and the people were incredible. And then certainly Southwestern Ontario is a big home to Canada Trust. So bolt on another 11 businesses. So all in all, there was almost 4,000 colleagues who worked and lived in Southwestern Ontario. So it was it was a great role and one that I felt really privileged to do.
Definitely, and a huge team that you led. What would you say were some of your biggest discoveries from your time leading that team of 1,300 people?
You know what? It's funny because before we landed in London, in southwestern Ontario, in July of 2017, we had never been to London. We had never been to Windsor. I had never seen Detroit from the beautiful land of Windsor and Brantford. These are all brand new communities. So I would say we learned really quickly how beautiful and how many wonderful experiences there were to have in southwestern Ontario, how important the farming community and industry is, not only to southwestern Ontario, but to the entire country. And I would say, I remember all of those things, but the thing that I'll remember the most is the warmth of the people and the warmth of the community. And I would say, leading southwestern Ontario for TD really taught me and reinforced even more the importance of standing tall in your community and being a leader. And I would say the other thing that I really tried to double down on was mentorship. I had an opportunity to, I called it, a 15-minute, it wasn't as fancy as Coffee with Craner, but, I had virtual calls with our frontline team, our advisors, and from all areas of the bank where I would ask them, what advice do they have for me, and how can we do better? How can we get better? So, staying close to your team, as I mentioned, your team is everything.
Well, Shane, I can definitely say from a CEA standpoint, working as a bank teller, you definitely built that culture. And I must say the amount of volunteer opportunities that were available to the staff in southwestern Ontario was just incredible, and it shined through. So definitely applauding you for your leadership there. But let's talk about now your role working at the Cooperators. What are you most excited about?
You know what? I am most excited about the opportunity to be an entrepreneur. So the Cooperators has an agency franchise. So I a bricks and mortar, much like a branch, and I will have the opportunity to be the owner and operator. So I'd say that's first and foremost. And I'd say actually not first and foremost. I'd probably put first and foremost the opportunity to help people with insurance advice and with wealth advice. Let's face it, both of those are complicated. And I would say my goal is to take the complicated out of complicated when it comes to insurance advice and wealth advice. But it really is about helping people. I'd say the Cooperators brand is not one that I was familiar with until I really started to look into, what is this Cooperators gang all about? And they really are anchored in community. They're anchored in sustainability. How do we actually make this world and this planet a better place? And most importantly, they're really anchored in people. So I'm pretty excited. It's week 2. They still have me going through all kinds of compliance courses, and I'm still on the leash. But it's going to be a great opportunity, and one that I'm really looking forward to. But that idea of building something yourself with a team is one that really excites me.
And if when eventually you decide to retire and put your feet up, what would be something that you really want to leave a mark on when you leave at the Cooperators? What is one thing that you can think of, wow, that I really want to make a difference in that?
You know what? I would say there's a couple pieces. Diversity is really, really important to me. And that's, when I think back to my time in southwestern Ontario and where we launched the first outside of Toronto in southwestern Ontario, where we spent a lot of time working with new Canadians. I would say my goal is to contribute and to make, the province first and then the country even stronger as we go into 2021, 22, 23. And I'm a big believer that immigration and bringing, diversity of thought and, ethnicity and everything in between will help us get us there. And so, that would probably be it is how do we make the place better than when we showed up?
Definitely. And since we're on this topic, you do a lot of work with immigration. Why do you volunteer your time for that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Selfishly, I do it because I can learn so much from new Canadians, both about their culture, but just how they think, and so I'd say that's number one. I'd say number two is really the opportunity to strengthen our economy. I don't have the facts at my fingertips, but the fact of the matter is that new Canadians create jobs, they create prosperity, and especially for the East Coast, we need more folks to move here. So you're welcome to move here anytime, Lyndon. I would love a smart brain like you living in Halifax. But yeah, I think it's just really important, and I would just say it's important just to give back. I've moved, and I know what it's like to be in an area where you don't have friends and family. So, can we create an environment? Can I create an environment where folks that are new feel welcome and warmth when they're thousands of miles away from their family? And the food. Let's not forget the food.
Yes.
The food. It's all about the food.
Yeah, we want to try other things than the Canadian food and the poutine. We want to diversify and try different things, right?
Absolutely.
But moving gears over to leadership, I want to talk about that. You have a lot of experience in leadership. What leadership skills do you really believe will help a young leader achieve some type of position of influence?
Yeah, and we've talked about a few already, but if I was to kind of bucket it, the one that jumps to mind right off the get go is humility, is to be humble. And my wife keeps me humble every day. When I kind of have a little too much swagger, she kind of she helps make me humble. But humility is really, really important. And I we talked about it. Always look to see how you can make the place better than when you showed up. And what you're doing with Coffee with Craner is a testament to that. I would say we talked about building skills and critical experiences. Is really, really important. And I would say, the other thing is community leadership. So not only is it important to give back, but being involved in your community is actually a great way to help build a business as well. And I don't, and a lot of people think community is giving back, and that's what it has to be. But it certainly helps you develop relationships, and it helps you build all kinds of connections, which is a win-win on both ends. I'd say if I was to kind of wrap it in a bow, I would say my golden 3 Ps. The first and foremost, the first P is about people. So put your focus on your colleagues or your employees if you're in a leadership role, and your customers. That's number one. So at all anything you do, people should be number one. I would say number two is building partnerships. So how do you build partnerships in your community? How do you build partnerships in your organization? And then I would say 3 is be proactive. Don't wait for somebody to ask you to do something. Be proactive. If you're in an advisory role, pick up the phone and call customers to see how you can make them money and save them time, or protect them, protect the people that they love and the assets that they've worked hard for. I could go on forever.
No, I will remember that the 3 Ps. I think that's really, really powerful what you just said there, Shane. Moving on to, what do you really wish somebody told you as you were really climbing through the ladder of leadership?
I don't, as I look back, I try not to have any regrets in life. I believe that everything happens, good, bad, and ugly. You can learn from it, and especially your mistakes. You can learn from your mistakes. You try to minimize the big ones, but even the big ones you can learn from. But I would say if I was to think back, it would probably be around self-awareness. So being self-aware of your strengths and really leaning into those strengths, but even more so being self-aware of where you have opportunities to do better and to grow. And there's a great, we all have unique personalities, and there's all kinds of personalities tests. But one that I learned actually when I was in Southwestern Ontario is one called Berkman. And it's all about colors. four colors. So there's red, which is all about action and getting things done. Green is about relationships and communication. Yellow is about process and structure. And my good friend, the blues, are all about innovation and strategic thinking. And, I think back 20 years ago, had I been doing this interview with you, I wouldn't have been focused on the yellow. I wouldn't have had process. I wouldn't have been prepared. And so, understanding your unique personality, but being self-aware of those strengths, but also on things that you can do to improve upon your opportunities. And I don't call them weaknesses; I call them opportunities.
Yes, and speaking of yellow, you saying that you were not having a whole focus on that preparedness. Has that really helped you, putting a focus on the yellow section? Has that helped you throughout your career?
Yeah, I think back to, it was probably 10 years ago. I was in a region office role and I was managing everything. And, I had to, and I was an idea guy, so I had all kinds of ideas, but it was like, okay, how do we actually execute on them? So I had to build process and discipline into everything. I became, highly focused on my calendar and booking 15-minute increments to get things done. I had a whiteboard where I wrote down my 5 priorities and I stared at them every day so that I knew what I needed to execute on. So I work on yellow, and I would say later on life that work on blue. So how do you just sit back and say, what are the problems that we're trying to solve? What does the next 10 years look like? And there's a great book that I just finished reading. It's called, and I pulled it up because I wanted to show you and everybody else. It's called The Future Leader. This book right here, it's about, what does a leader look like in 10 years time? What are the trends shaping leadership today? And, what are the skills that are going to be necessary as we think about, 2030? And it's a great book. It's by Jacob Morgan, and he talks about you need to be Yoda, you need to be an explorer. So it's a really cool book, and one that I would recommend everybody take a peek at. I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but there we go.
I will definitely check that out. I think that's phenomenal. I appreciate that you shared that with those watching. Check out the book. What's it called again?
It's called The Future Leader.
Yes. All right, for everyone on screen, definitely check out that book.
And sticker not involved. That's my little girl's sticker there. So don't be disappointed. No stickers involved.
Yes. But Shane, moving on to, I noticed with you, you're focused a lot on mottos. What would be, if you could bundle up to 5, what would be your top 5 leadership models that you live by?
Mottos, like taglines, we'll call them. So I would say, thinking back to time management and process, there's a couple that I learned along the way from smarter people than I, and one was touch it once. And I not only did this at work, but I do it at home. And really what it means is when you start a task, don't put it down until you're finished with it. So when I'm at home and I start to fold the laundry, and my phone bings, I do not put the laundry down until I finish it. So touch it once is one. The other one that comes to mind is eat your frog first. So eat your frogs first. And really what that speaks to is that when you have a difficult task or something that you're not looking forward to do it first thing in the morning. Eat your frog. The other one that I love is EQ trumps IQ. And if you haven't heard the term emotional intelligence, it is there's been many studies that the leaders that have high emotional intelligence actually do better than those who have a high IQ. So learning and understanding what emotional intelligence is one. The last 2 I would say would be thank yous are free, but they're priceless. And really what it speaks to is just build a culture of recognition. And, whether you are in a leadership role, and I say everybody's in a leadership role, but whether you lead people, just thank people. How do you thank people and make others look better and look good? And in turn, you will be rewarded for that. So, and the last one is really speaks to coaching. And a great guy by Mazen, who used to work with me, shared this quote. And I pulled it out because it's one that I've kept for a long time. If coaches are pushing you hard, be thankful. It means they care. Be worried when they stop. So it just speaks to that whole idea of coaching, and when others are pushing you and you're like, oh my gosh, what is this guy or girl doing? Like they're giving me a hard time. They're doing it in a lot of cases, and in most cases, they're doing it to make you better. When they stop, that's when you want to worry.
Yeah, definitely. And the last one speaks to me a lot too. But Shane, I really appreciate you sharing those insights with us. I think we covered a lot today. We talked about your previous experience in the financial services industry, moving out to Nova Scotia, where you've had a whole reset and a whole refresh, and you joined the cooperators. And I really appreciate your time today on the show.
That's great. But listen, I know that you're the Larry King of this show, and God rest his soul, Larry King. But I want to ask you a few questions, because you've set up an impressive enterprise here, where you've interviewed, I think, 40? You've had, has it been a large number of interviews?
44, yes.
But who's counting? 44. So, from all facets of life, and, and terrific leaders. I guess my question to you, Lyndon, is what would be the one or two common themes that you've heard from all of the leaders that you've had a chance to sit down and have coffee with? What would those two things be?
For sure. And, Shane, I took, when I saw that you sent me these questions, it really threw me back a bit, and definitely made me want to think I need to reflect more on the great content and the great value that my guests are providing. And I think it's been phenomenal being able to connect with leaders across Canada, and yourself today. But I would say, through looking at all my guests, each of them, I think they've achieved success really because of the hard work that they put in. They've done tremendous things throughout their life, and I believe that really that hard work and dedication has really, really led to their accomplishments. It's not necessarily something that they said right out of the blue, that working hard achieves success, but you can really tell from their stories that just kind of sitting back and relaxing is not going to get you in the positions that they are. And the second thing I think I've learned from all my guests, and it was something that I implied, but community service and really how that's developed character. And especially you working with the Immigrant Association and all the other guests that I've interviewed, they've devoted their time really to the community, whether it's through a paid job that they have or volunteering. They've really, really focused on the community. And I think it's really made them more well-rounded, definitely a great overall character that they have, and really helped them gain those skills and abilities.
Yeah, those are two great ones. And finally, from my perspective, I'm starting a whole new chapter, and you're a very smart guy. What's your advice for me as I start with the wonderful organization, the Cooperators? What advice do you have for me as I get into entrepreneurship?
I appreciate that. And I can't give you any advice from the financial services perspective, but I do think that what you're doing right now is taking the time to speak with someone. I'm 20 years old. You're taking the time to speak with me, and all those that are watching. I really think that does a lot. And while you're entering this new and exciting role at the Cooperators, I would just encourage you to really continue engaging with students and youth that are my age, mentoring and guiding them, really focusing on young people, because I think they'll provide a lot of value in your organization.
Yeah, that's a great one. And before we go, you have to show everybody your T-shirt.
Yes,
you're representing here. We're going to have to send this to Alex McLean, because I said that he's a great East Coast entrepreneur that's built a great brand. So shout out to Alex. We'll tag him on this video when we send it out for sure.
For sure, and I definitely wore it on purpose all the way out in East Coast. Shane Kennedy joining us on the show today. Thanks for those for tuning in. I see you on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Thanks for making the time. And Shane, always great seeing you.
You too. Let's stay in touch, Lyndon. It's a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks so much.